Good morning. This is Kevin Rice, and I woke up this morning thinking I was actually brought to tears this morning of the depth of gratitude I brought to my world and to life. And I was thinking about what I went through 2 years ago and what my spouse went through months ago. Where I had 2 years ago a brain hemorrhage, subdural hematoma, and I went through 2 brain surgeries, and my doctors told my spouse and my best friends and family he's probably not going to survive this. And after the second surgery, they said he's definitely not going to survive this, and if he does survive it, he's going to be basically a vegetable for the rest of his life. So they put 4 titanium plates in my head right here, and then months ago, I'd say 4 months ago, my spouse was diagnosed with 4-stage cancer, throat cancer. And it was an experience and an opportunity for healing for both of us. Right now, for me, I pretty much have transcended that story given to us by the doctors and the voices of the world that said, Kevin, you're never going to survive successfully through this. And my spouse, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they found nothing whatsoever in his throat. So we together did 5 things together to really surround those events every day. And I'm sharing this with you, my friends, because I have a lot of friends who are having a call to health. And most people would respond with those events with alarm, and found it to be very disturbing. And it made the conditions that they are experiencing, or any condition that I went through and Aaron went through, if we use that same narrative, I think that the story would go south and not north. So, look, I'm going to give you here 5 principles that I brought every day to my own recovery. And my husband, Aaron Adams, I feel like he experienced the same principles that he brought to bear through his 4 or 5 month ordeal that he went through as well, okay? So I'm going to give you 5 principles today, and I hope that you get it, because I accept it every day, and I really use it as a default for me to make sure that I can transcend any event or circumstance that arises in my field of awareness. So, first of all, let's take a deep breath together, okay? Because God is here. Okay? So the first principle I brought to bear in my own experience was to accept all things as they are. In other words, to immediately get myself off of the war with myself. Okay? So I recognized that the event that I was experiencing was not an external event, but an internal change of mind. If I did not accept all things as they are, I am immediately on a battlefield with myself. I am immediately at war with the world. In that moment, I was a victim of the world that I am experiencing. But I knew that this wasn't true. I had to accept all things as they are because, number one, it's already over and done with. It's already over and done with. It's in the past. And so I do not want to use the past against the present moment. I had to acknowledge that in some level in my mind, I participated in this event. I accepted that this occurred. I have done this thing, and it is this that I will undo. So the first principle here is to get off of the battlefield with yourself. We know that we're on the battlefield immediately when we accept our own interpretations of the world, right? By saying that I've got a set of values here and you've got your values, you've got a set of values too, but my values are better than yours, okay? In other words, I'd rather be right than happy. So I got off the I'm right battlefield with myself, okay? The doctor's right, the dreadful stories given to me was right, and I was right too, and everybody else is wrong, okay? So get off of the battlefield immediately by recognizing that the lack of peace that you and I are experiencing right now is principally because of a thought that arose in my mind, and then I followed that thought. I followed that thought. So I stopped following that thought. I stopped following that thought, that dirge, that song of death that was replaying in my mind over and over again. So accepting all things as they are, okay? The past is over, and with its passing, the drive and the desire for attack and judgment and so forth is immediately uprooted. I stopped judgment entirely, okay? By saying, I don't know what this is. Tell me, my higher voice, my higher power, tell me, what does this mean to me, okay? So, number one, I was accepting all things as they are by suspending my judgment about myself, the storyline that was given to me by the voices of the world, and to completely dive into the eternal timeless now. Okay, the second principle I brought to bear in this experience, and again, I believe that Aaron did too, was to embrace it with love. To embrace it with love. You see, the egoic mind initially wants to poke at the storyline. It wants to evaluate it. It wants to compare my condition with other people's, my spouse's condition with other people's, and so forth. And in that process, I was not embracing and diving into the experience that I was having and what my spouse was experiencing as well. So when I embrace it with love, the whole condition begins to change almost immediately. I want to say 3 words to you today. Only loving thoughts. Only loving thoughts. Love heals. Only love heals. Yes, we can use everything that we need to do to get ourselves to a better place, but at the end of the day, if we are not bringing to bear the love that is trying to express itself in that event, to transcend that fear, that voice of fear that arises all the time in my life, and to replace it with a complete experience of love. It is my default every day. When my mind begins to engage in activity of attack or judgment or fear, my default is to immediately change my mind, okay? And to and surround and enfold that event with love total love. Also, compassion. Hey, other people in my life, in this world, has experienced challenging events. And also to see the innocence of it. And I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. Love, compassion, and innocence. When I change those stories of doom and dread and so forth, because my mind is so powerful, my thoughts are so powerful, I can immediately, in this moment, change my mindset. I'm changing the subject from fear to love. And when I change the subject that I keep telling myself from fear to love, that is where the miracle arises in our world. And this is why my purpose and my intention and my function in this world is love, 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 love. Love heals. It does. Fear does the opposite. Okay? Fear allows your mind to go south. And the storyline that you keep telling yourself over and over and over again will just deepen the experience that you're having in this world. This is why our organization is onlylovingthoughts.com. That is my purpose here, to express the good, the sacred, and the beautiful each and every day by embracing everything that I'm experiencing in this world, okay? The third principle I bring to bear is to let go of my interpretation of the world. When I change my interpretation, scientifically, what I really mean is, from the back of my brain, there's videos on my website for this, by the way, Attaining the I Am Presence. Letting go of my interpretation scientifically means that I'm changing the electrical impulses that is charging in the back of my brain, in the visual cortex. So when I change my interpretation of the world, then I have an experience where I transcend that narrative that I keep telling myself over and over again. If my narrative every day is doom and gloom, if the narrative every day is a negative Nancy or a gloomy Gus, then that is the experience that I will have. The world is nothing more than an outward picture of an inward condition. When you begin to change the condition, the mindset, the context that you look at your world with, that you look at your body with, the world begins to change almost immediately, okay? So, number one, we accept all things as they are. Secondly, we embrace all things, okay? We transcend the narrative, the interpretation that we bring to the world by merely changing my mind about it, okay? And then fourthly, bringing gratitude to it every day. To being in a state of thankfulness that, number one, you're here. Your existence isn't going to go anywhere, regardless of the appearances that you're looking at. And that you bring yourself away from the past and the future, which technically brings to you a sense of hatred, of blame, of shame. Somebody else did this to me, okay? So that storyline is suspended as you say, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay? When my brain, I'll give you an example, when my brain was swollen, okay, for like 3 months, I could not speak at all. And I said to myself over and over again, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The thank you attitude actually transcends any storyline founded by fear. Because thank you is the opposite of the world. It is. And so when I say thank you, that I'm grateful for the challenges that I went through 2 years ago, that my spouse went through in his recovery from his stage 4 cancer, which is gone, is to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, because my anchor is no longer upon the appearances of time and space anymore. But my narrative is transcended by merely saying thank you. Thank you to my source, and seeing this whole event that I went through, that my spouse went through, as an opportunity that this event is arising to be healed. That's it. Okay. It's merely a call to health. That's it. Most people's narrative is different from that. This is sickness. This is going to be my death. This will be a tragedy, and so forth. Okay? When I change my interpretation of this, okay, from I hate this, I am experiencing a destructive thought, okay, I can change it immediately by saying thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you to my source beyond the appearances of death and fear and shame and blame and victimhood. And let my anchor be centered into the reality and the truth of who I am. That number one, I am not alone. I'm not friendless here. That my source is here. That God is here. And because of that, I thank God that I'm not separate from anything in this world at all. I'm thankful that there is no separation from me and my source at all. So I remove the gap that I made myself between me and the world. Okay, I remove it. And I see the oneness arising in my mind because of it. You get this, folks? So thank you is so important in our recovery, and understanding that merely all that we are experiencing and our mindset will change because of it. All Kevin Rice is having is a call to health, right? And the mind will fill that vacuum because of it. And the same is true with my spouse. Aaron Adams was merely having a call to health. And so I'm going to give him the health in my perceptions and my interpretation of him. You see this? And the world begins to change almost immediately. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so grateful for the experience that I'm having right now with you, my friends. I'm very grateful for the experience I had with my spouse. Yeah, it was a pickle to go through this. It was a pickle to go through what I went through as well. But it was an opportunity for healing. And so all of these things are here not by accident, with a purpose behind it, that the light is here. The light is here. That I am as God created me and not what I made of myself, not the self-image that I have produced and identify with and side with. I am as God created me will dispel the darkness, and the light begins to emerge in my experience with the world. And then fifthly, the fifth principle I bring to bear, and Aaron did too, is to see the event, the experience, the circumstance as sacred and not a bad thing. Okay? It reminds me of a story I've said many times over the years and doing lessons and so forth and teaching, where a woman's son died in war, and she went to a guru in the East and was crying, and the guru said to her, "Hey, I'm not here to remove your tears. I'm here to teach you that your tears are sacred." My friend, it is sacred scientifically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. It's sacred because you no longer use your spouse's past or your own past against the present moment. Because, as I said previously, the past is over. And with its passing, the drive for vengeance is gone. It disappears. So you don't have the past or the future or the expectations of the future cover over the present moment. The past is over and the future is not here. And because of that, the only thing that is experiencing as you dive into the eternal timeless now is sacred. It's sacred. It doesn't have the past and the future to taint the present moment experience. Look, my friends, you and I are not a body, number one. Our existence, our essence, the infinite consciousness that you and I are eternal. And yes, we do have a storyline sometimes of birth and death and rebirth and birth and death and rebirth, and this goes over and over and over again if we continue that narrative of the song of death. Okay? We can stop this immediately by letting go of the guilt that is producing these events every day. I remember I was with Chris Jackson in Miami, and I'm sitting on the patio overlooking Biscayne Bay. And that next morning, I knew that Aaron and I had to go to Dr. Weed, and that's his name, Dr. Weed, in Miami. A wonderful doctor, by the way, University of Miami Health Systems. And my level of resistance was at level 10, okay? And I knew that this problem was not Aaron. This lack of peace was not a problem of Aaron. It was me, personally. And I said to my source, and I said, "Hey, tell me, what's going on here?" I had to trace the effect back to the cause, my own mind, okay, and see it properly, to set my mind right side up, okay? And I recognized that the source of all of my problems here, with my spouse, with my own experience in time and space, it was when I feed and entertain this idea of guilt in my own mind. With respect to Aaron, I'm the one who's the problem here. I'm a horrible husband. I'm not doing the proper thing that the doctor's telling me that I need to do. And I remembered from that prayer from A Course in Miracles. It says, "I must have chosen poorly because I'm not at peace. I made the decision myself, but I can decide otherwise. I want to decide otherwise because I want to be at peace. I do not feel guilty because the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of love, will undo all of the consequences if I let Him. And I choose to let Him to decide for God for me in this moment." In that moment, my friends, the guilt disappeared. I'm going to end this with you, my friends. Guilt is the most unproductive emotion in the world. It just is. Glue is the guilt is the glue that keeps the egoic mind intact. That is its source. That is the reason why it maintained itself in this world. So, yeah, look, I acknowledge that I make mistakes all the time, okay? But I meet it with correction, okay? I do not see myself or my spouse with punishment, which comes from guilt, okay? And I uproot that guilt by setting it aside. Because I know that this is something that I myself have produced in my mind, in my dimension. But I can undo that guilt and replace it with the innocence that I am today. The innocence that you are as well. You are the light of the world. And when you begin to express it every day, extending the light of the world, to your spouse, to your coworkers, your bosses, everything, the darkness begins to dispel into the nothingness from which it was born. And so those events that arise, I always respond. My friend Adriana Mattis, who said through my own recovery every day, said, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. She wasn't forgiving me. She was forgiving her interpretation of the events. The same is true with me with any other event. I said this to every day for Aaron, and I said it to myself through the recovery. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I personally participated in a storyline, a narrative of doom and gloom. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. And all I'm doing is that I'm forgiving my interpretation that I'm bringing to the event. Okay? And I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you. I surround you with love. I surround you with compassion. I surround you with the sacred nature of who of you and I are each and every day. And thank you. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for the opportunities that you have given me to recognize that we are better than the narrative of the voices of the world, the voices of the dead who think that they know the way to life. I'm not saying get rid of your medical helping doctors and surgeons and so forth. Keep doing that. But surround the whole thing, though, in the process with complete love each and every day. And I hope that you have a wonderful morning on Sunday morning here. I'm in West Palm Beach, and it's a beautiful day, is it not? And it's going to be wherever you are. If you accept all things as they are, embrace all things as they are, let go of your interpretation that you have brought to this world by saying thank you, and then seeing this whole event as sacred. It's sacred. It's sacred. Sink into that. Sink into the depth of the ocean of love instead of tethering yourself to the waves on the surface of the ocean. That's the difference. You sink deep into your own identity and recognize who you are as the light and the love of God.